Yeah, so today we want to talk about this. So it's introduction of infection prevention chain is an introduction for you guys, but we have been working with this for the last 4 years at least. Yeah, so we have been working this, and why we decide to put together several people and start working in this concept is we understand that the practitioners out there, I was in that side of the table before, they face these very complex respiratory problems, or these very complex disease challenges. So for that reason, we need to think about an approach, a very complex approach, very well-structured approach, in order to face these very complex problems. So what is the best way? So try to focus in the whole system, not just the animal that we want to try to vaccinate in order to prevent the disease. It's not focused just in the animal, we need to focus in the population, and also we need to focus in the production system. So in other words, I know I'm going to talk about a little bit more, but for example, what is going on right now in a finisher unit? Pigs are coughing, pigs are dying today, 150 days of age. Maybe the root of the problem happened 1 year before. Somebody didn't do a good job in the gill acclimation unit, and everything is connected. So this is kind of the holistic approach that we want to be talking about. So it's a very complex and very well-structured concept, yeah, but sometimes we have people saying, yeah, I've been doing this all my life, but they are skipping some links of this chain. So this is kind of the introduction for this. So if we want to define this in 3 bullet points, the first one, it's this concept brings together new and existing knowledge in swine disease management. So it's something that the practitioners, scientifics, universities, they have been doing for the last 30 years. But we are missing some links of this infection chain. So for that reason, it's all information and new data. So now, first, we need to understand what were the knowledge gap lists in all this infection chain in order to start generating the new information. So we are putting together all information and new information, existing knowledge with new knowledge. What is the goal? Is whole hair approach to health management. When we say whole health, we are talking about the whole system. So again, if I see a problem in a finishing, so the root cause analysis maybe going to bring me down to the firing room, maybe going to bring me upstream to the software, or maybe going to bring me upstream to the gill acclimation unit, or maybe going to bring me up to the gill, to the multiplier, for example. Everything is connected. So when we want to work prevention, so we need to think in all these processes. So we need to map all the process. Mapping all the process, we want to be able to start identifying where all the infection points are, so where we want to be able to start applying all our prevention tools in order to have this whole hair approach. The final goal, or one of the goals for this also, is deliver a vaccine-ready 3 weeks old pig to win to finish farm. So when we are winning animals and we are vaccinating those piglets, we need to make sure that those piglets are healthy. They are not receiving a lot of disease pressure from the sow herd. So that's going to be the beginning. For the industry, that has been the beginning for the last 20, 30 years. But we believe that it's halfway. The beginning is the gill. So when we are getting those piglets, so we are halfway. Okay, now we are ready. We vaccinate those piglets, and now we want to be ready to go for the second part of the way. So when we are talking about this vaccine-ready piglet, is the piglet that is, thanks to all the work we did in sow herd and the gill acclimation unit, the piglet going to be ready, going to be healthy, and also the piglet going to be receiving less infection pressure, because all the infection pressure that is generated in the sow herd is going downstream, going to get accumulated in the nursery and in the finisher. So this vaccine-ready piglet, where we work in order to get this piglet, sow herd and gill acclimation. And that's very important because we have a tremendous expectation for that vaccine in that piglet. When we talk about disease management, so we explain this is simple. We understand it's simple on paper when we write down and we try to define what's going to be the disease management for that problem. So we understand that it's very simple on paper, but what are some of the pitfalls that producers run into? So we need to understand what's going to be the constraints. Why is it important for producers to follow all the steps in the disease management equation? So every single step going to be important. Every single step has to be based on scientific data. So for the reason every single step going to be important. So at the end of the day, we need to understand that it's not just because somebody is kind of guessing. There is a lot of science behind all this, every single step. And the point is, how do they get there? So when they are trying to do this disease management, the easy way to go for this kind of a difficult way, so how they're going to get there, is as I mentioned before, if we start mapping the process, so we want to be able to identify the points where we want to be necessary to work in a very hard way in order to have kind of a minimizing that infection, and where we want to need to start maximizing the immune response. I'm going to talk about that game a little bit after. So this is a very simple way to mapping the production chain. So we start with the gill source, we have a gill development, we have a sow herd, we have a farrowing room where we want to have all the new piglets, and also we have the wean to finish, and we send those animals to market. So this is the map I was talking about. So when we map all the production process, so okay, what kind of transmission or what kind of disease interaction, the pathogen with the pig, we're going to have in the gill development. Okay, could be X behavior. So we want to focus in that relationship between the pathogen and the swine and the pig. I'm going to start using vaccine at that level. So at what age? It really depends on the system. But if we start mapping, so we want to be able to identify that very specific point. The same with the sow herd, same with farrowing, the same wean to finish, and when we are selling animals. So how we call this? This is the infection chain. So we have several links. So we have several links in every single production stage. We can have 2 links here in gill development, 2 or 3 links in the sow herd. Really depends on every single disease. But the most important thing here is that we are mapping. We are mapping a process, so we are identifying the points where we need to be really focused and start kind of minimizing all this infection pressure. Again, what is going on here in the wean to finish at 120 days of age may be related with something that was done or something that wasn't done in a good way in the gill development process. So everything is connected. So yeah, we don't have time to go deep in the technical things, but we have several epidemiological concepts that we need to cover. Is the horizontal transmission, vertical transmission, several ways that the pathogen can be moving around, starting here and end up here in the wean to finish, for example. So when we are doing this, when we are mapping all the process, what we are doing is having this whole hair approach. This whole hair approach, at the end of the day, going to help us to have this disease management equation. The first step is we need to minimize exposure by biosecurity, flow management, antimicrobials. Flow management, for example, is very important in sow herd. How well we structure all the parities, because we don't have a very young sows, we don't have old sows. How we structure all these populations in order to start avoiding subpopulations in terms of immune response. So that is nothing related with vaccines, nothing related with antibiotics, it's just flow management. How are we doing a good job in terms of flow management in the sow herd? That's very important. So we are minimizing exposure by biosecurity, trying to avoid internal biosecurity in the system and also external biosecurity. I want to stop some infection internally, and also I don't want to get a new bug coming from the neighbor. So when I'm doing this, I'm minimizing exposure, and that's going to be very important. And at the same time, also I'm going to maximize immunity. How? By vaccination, acclimation, lactation management, and proper nutrition. Why, for example, lactation management? If we are doing a good job and all the piglets are getting the right amount of colostrum, so that is lactation management. If I'm doing a good flow management in the sow herd, so at the end of the day, I want to have the right proportion of young sows, old sows. So for that reason, it's going to be easy for me to do lactation management. I'm going to have the right amount and the quality of the colostrum, for example. But I don't want to go so deep in that, but is here in maximize immunity, we can use vaccine, and at the same time, we need to do all these things to minimize exposure. So, for example, here, if we're using a vaccine, we're doing vaccination to maximize immunity, the goal for that vaccine, always we look for a direct benefit and indirect benefit. Direct benefit is what is in the label of the vaccine, so you're going to have a benefit and reduction of clinical signs, reduction of lesions. But also, in some cases, we have an indirect benefit. When the vaccine is getting ready, is getting immunized, when the pig is getting immunized, so we're going to see less disease in that animal, but it's not just that benefit. The animal is going to shed less virus or less bacteria, so the neighbor's going to be receiving less exposure. So that is the indirect benefit. So when we have a finisher where we have less disease because those animals were vaccinated, so those animals are going to shed less virus, less bacteria, so we're going to have less bacteria in the environment, so we're going to have a benefit in the whole system. And actually, we're going to have a benefit in the region. If we have a winter finishing that is quiet, is very well protected, is no clinical signs, not much shedding, the neighbor going to receive a benefit. So that is the indirect benefit when we are doing this vaccination. So when we are playing with this whole hair approach, mapping all the process, always we need to think, okay, how am I going to maximize, for example, here in the farm room, how am I going to minimize exposure, how am I going to maximize immunity? It's the same thing in every single production stage. So at the end of the day, when we have this holistic approach, what we have is kind of a very long SOP of things that we need to do in every single stage. So this holistic approach to maximizing immunity, we have this common management practice for M. hyo and pears as example, allow for similar infection chain management. So we have two diseases, they are different, clinical signs are different, manifestations different, but when they are passing through the whole process, there are some similarities that we can take advantage so we can start using these tools at the same time. For example, in replacement gilts, we understand that we have a revaccination for M. hyo and we have a vaccination for pears, so we can put together these tools. And sow hair is mass vaccination for pears. Also, we can apply that for mycoplasma. So in the sow hair, what we are looking for is a stable sow herd. And at the end of the day, as we can see here, so we want to produce piglets, so we want to have the suckling piglets. Vaccination around weaning for M. hyo and pears if hair is pears positive. So it really depends. So this is going to be farm specific. I'm trying to say that we start designing all the intervention activities in every single stage. This is what we call prevention chain. So we understand the infection chain when we map all the process. So yeah, the infection is taking this behavior in this stage, and that behavior in that stage. When we understand that, okay, now the final thing is to create the prevention chain, a combination. So I'm going to vaccinate the gilt once versus with mycoplasma. I'm going to vaccinate the gilt twice with pears, and so on, in order to have the whole program. This whole program is the whole hair approach. Infection chain provides a comprehensive approach. It's a combination of disease management, strategies, and tactics. So at the end of the day, we're going to have a kind of a very well-structured and very complex SOP for every single stage. So for that reason, we want to be putting together all the management strategies and tactics. So we want to, again, minimize transmission, minimize exposure. We want to optimize all our immunological tools, vaccines, maximizing immunity, and at the end of the day, what we are looking is optimize profitability. I learned this well on all my practice, or the time I've been working with production systems. Also, I have the opportunity to work with a genetic company, so giving technical support around the world. I was really focused in minimize transmission and maximize immunity, and I think for big part of my professional career, I was forgetting about this. But when you start seeing that here, you are start impacting here, is because we are doing a very good management on these two. How we are minimizing transmission, how we are maximizing immunity. So the take-home message for this is the infection prevention chain concept is a tool for swine diseases management using the whole hair approach. It encourages systematic interventions. It's not just thinking in the piglet, it's thinking in the whole system. Even though in the piglet is where I'm going to see the clinical signs, I need to think upstream, because they're going to be the root of the problem. A second take-home message going to be this concept connects epidemiological events, what we call infection chain, related to disease, between the different production phases, that is the production chain, and facilitates the root cause analysis. So this, we are focusing in the infection, but also we are focusing in production. At the end of the day is where we have the diseases. It utilizes a logical chain thinking to create a multi-phase, this is very important, multi-phase intervention strategies, prevention chain, critical, to achieve successful and sustainable health programs. That is very important. We want to be successful creating these good programs, but we want to sustain these good results for a long time. When we see a respiratory problem in a finishing barn and we use antibiotics, maybe we're going to get the benefit next day for the next 2 weeks. When we take off the antibiotics, we're going to keep seeing the problem. So because we are not going to the root of the problem, we are not doing this root cause analysis. So when we do this, what we're going to get these sustainable health programs. So we're going to see these programs long lasting. So that is the main thing. So with this, I finish, and I didn't want to go so deep, but there is a lot of knowledge that is behind, and this is a concept. And when we apply this to every single disease, we start using tools. So we have something we call the PRC decision tree for mycoplasma, for pairs, for PCVID, for example, for circovirus, circovirus. And at that point, we are using very specific tools. But the point here is every single step in the infection chain, in the prevention chain, going to be very important in order to get the final benefit on the whole program. So again, we are facing very complex clinical problems out there. So for the reason we need to design this complex approach. I finished this, and the next part of the presentation, it's going to be an application of these concepts. So for that reason, we invite Dr. Brian Payne. Dr. Brian Payne, he works for Pipestone Veterinary Clinic. And he's a young veterinarian, very active, and also looking at different ways to go deep in this root cause analysis and create these complex approaches, programs in order to face these complex problems out there. So it's a pleasure to invite Brian. Also, Brian, it's a former BI before when he was going back to practice. Before that, he was working in BI, in actually helping a lot in all these concepts. And now we invite Brian because he is applying this concept. He is developing more tools in order to face this problem. So we believe it is a perfect fit to have you guys understand the practical approach application for this presentation.